Okay. Well, folks, we are been discussing Isaiah, Isaiah chapter 35, and there's some really, really amazing verses in there. Verse 5 and 6 that talks about one day that the eyes of the blind will be opened, the ears of the deaf will be unstopped, and then they will leap like a deer, and the mute tongue will shout for joy. An amazing, amazing picture of healing and wholeness in the life to come. But also, we're talking about just foretastes of that. Some people in terms of healings that can happen just now as a foretaste. So I just want to talk to Bob Phillip, and Bob is just going to share with us. Bob, you've got a story, haven't you, of an amazing healing concerning your son, haven't you? So why don't you share that with us? Thanks.
Well, I was in the church, my first church in Glasgow, and it was December, and Yvonne and Keith, who was just not long turned 3, had gone down to her home in Berwick, but they'd taken the flu. Now I knew that, and then I had a phone call to say, you better come, because Yvonne had been wakened by the heat of Keith from the flu that he had, and she had it. Fortunately, the hospital and the doctors were just over the back wall, and they came rushing, and Yvonne had realised that he was in a convulsion, and so did the doctor, and she realised that in fact he was choking, and it turned out he had ingested his vomit because his throat was so constricted, and she took him into the hospital, and her and another doctor were working, or 2 doctors were working on him, but they couldn't get a tube down his throat. The best they could do was get a catheter tube down, and they still couldn't get the stuff out. And the doctor stepped back and waved their hands, and the anaesthetist thought, well, what have we got to lose? And he doubled the pressure of the oxygen, and the stuff came out of his lungs. And I got a phone call to say, you better come down because they're saying things are bad. And I went down, and that story, in fact, we didn't get till later, the details, but I went to see what was happening, and he was very seriously ill, and the doctor said to us, the least he can have in the morning is pneumonia. And in fact, 2-3 years later, first aider said to me, yes, it's usually infective pneumonia, which is almost always fatal. Didn't know it was quite as bad as that, but that's what she said. So I didn't have the courage and the faith until everybody went away. I laid hands on him and prayed that he'd be healed. And the next morning he was sitting up singing Sunday school choruses. The doctor came to us later that day, and she said, well, I said to you yesterday, the least he could have is pneumonia. I will say it again. The least he should have is pneumonia, and his lungs are clear. They carried on pumping penicillin into him for days, but that was what happened. Now, you all know, of course, that Keith has a disability of kind of autism thing. He was showing signs of that before all this happened, but maybe we should have prayed a bit harder. And in fact, I think that I probably should have done more kind of praying and healing. And I have fallen back, and I've done it sometimes and not other times. But that is, I mean, he really should be dead. It's that simple.
Oh, that's amazing. That's brilliant, Bob. Thank you so much for that sharing that story. And we all know of Keith, of course, because he comes to the church when he's up and able to see you. So, but folks, that's us been. We've been really just talking about foretastes of the heavenly reality, that heavenly reality where there will be no more sickness and no more pain. And for some of us, we've been sharing stories about healings and receiving healings and praying for people. And it's something as a church that we don't want to give up on, and certainly want to press in. So it's been great, and we can see that in Isaiah 35. So thank you, Bob, for sharing that. That's brilliant.
Right.